Well, joining us now is Emil Dall, a research fellow in the Nuclear Policy Programme at the Royal United Services Institute. It's all playground calling, isn't it? But Trump has announced new sanctions against North Korea. So will those sanctions have any effect?
Yes and no. I don't think sanctions will cause the North Koreans to roll back their nuclear program overnight. That is a very distant and a very hard goal to achieve. But what sanctions can do is to make it harder for North Korea to carry out its illicit activities abroad that earns the regime revenue and allows the regime to procure materials and technology that they need.
Explain what those illicit sort of opportunities are that they're taking advantage of, Emil.
Well, so North Korea basically runs like an organized crime network around the world. In China, in the rest of Asia, but also in Europe and in Africa. They've been very skilled in generating income for the regime through organized crime, money laundering, all types of things. But they also go out on the international market to buy things that they need for their nuclear and missile program.
Okay, so we got this the increased actions from Donald Trump, but also China's central bank has told their banks to stop doing business with North Korea. That feels like a much more resonant sanction to make, a much more sort of, in terms of sort of strategy, a better strategy, because of course the Chinese are such an important trading partner for North Korea.
So North Korean banks have been designated by the United Nations for a while now. So for a while, we've had a situation where you can't actually do any business with North Korean financial institutions. So it does send a message that China now seems to be waking up to this. But one thing is saying it and another thing is doing it. And if North Korea operates as an organized crime network abroad, they won't show up as North Korea on the payment slip. It won't say the client is North Korea. So it really depends on how well does Chinese banks know their clients? Do they know that front companies are operating on behalf of North Korea? Do they know that a company run by a Chinese national with no on-paper connection back to North Korea is indeed connected to North Korea? I'm not sure they do.
It's all very disturbing when you see, you know, any use of the word nuclear weapon, even if it's in testing, and when you hear the name calling. But should we take comfort that behind, you know, calling Donald Trump deranged and Donald Trump calling Kim Jong-un, you know, Rocket Man on a suicide mission, is there proper diplomacy going on to try and sort it out?
I don't think the current exchange of words is particularly helpful, but I also don't think we're on the brink of nuclear war just yet. But what is needed is exactly what you're pointing to, is proper diplomacy, and I just don't see that happening right now. Who would that come
from? Who would lead the way on that?
Well, so we've seen back channels go through the UN in New York, actually, where the North Koreans are present, and we've seen back channels there in the past. That's how they've been negotiated in the past. But right now, the prospect of negotiations seems quite far away when you have a president in the United States threatening to totally destroy North Korea, and North Korea threatening to very visually test a hydrogen bomb over the Pacific Ocean. That's
I mean, undoubtedly what Donald Trump will say was the North Koreans keep testing these missiles, and they keep doing it over and over and over again, and they are threatening the security of that region. What is he supposed to do?
Well, one thing is putting the military option out there, and Barack Obama had the military option as well. But Trump is putting it front and center and almost makes it seem like that's his only option.
But isn't North Korea doing that by testing these missiles? That's, I mean, here we're saying that that's exactly what they're doing.
So, yes, North Korea's behavior is provocative and it defies any norm of international law. Absolutely. But what we should be doing in response is not fuel that. So Donald Trump's comments invite for another provocation by Kim Jong-un. And everything that we...
It's almost like a challenge to him when he says stop.
Yeah. Our reaction to North Korea's provocative actions can't make the situation worse. What we should do is, yes, we should absolutely install new sanctions, but we also need to think about, well, what do those sanctions accompany? The sanctions will only be as effective as the strategy that we put with it. So
but
something like
as you pointed out, I mean, if North Korea runs this criminal network, that actually identifying the businesses and the companies that are moving this money around the world and creating this wealth for the country is practically impossible, because of course if it's state sponsored, then they're going to be incredibly powerful as well. So identifying a way of imposing sanctions that actually resonates is going to be almost impossible.
Well, it needs education, and especially banks in jurisdictions where there's not much knowledge about how North Korea evades sanctions. They need to be educated more. But you see where we got to with terrorist financing. That's something that's high on the agenda right now.
Yeah.
If we can achieve the same level of attention for North Korea's financial activities, I think we can do much more.
That will have more of an impact. Interesting. Emil Dall, Research Fellow from the Nuclear Policy Programme at the Royal United Services Institute. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.